There are so many benefits of the sage herb. In the United States, the sage herb often gets ignored all but one day of the year. Then on Thanksgiving, in late November, sage bottles are dusted off and sprinkled into the stuffing, which is a travesty. There are plenty of reasons to love sage herb every day of the year. In this episode, I'll share my love of sage, including sage tea benefits, and share a sage sore throat relief recipe. Sage is so amazing for a sore throat. It's even been shown to be more effective and have more benefits than pharmaceuticals. More on that in just a bit. Hello and welcome to the Herbs with Rosalee podcast, a show exploring how herbs heal as medicine, as food, and through nature connection. I'm your host, Rosalee de la Forêt. I created this YouTube channel to share trusted herbal wisdom so that you can get the best results when relying on herbs for your health. I love offering up practical knowledge to help you dive deeper into the world of medicinal plants and seasonal living. Each episode of the Herbs with Rosalee podcast is shared on YouTube as well as your favorite podcast app. Transcripts and recipes for each episode can be found at herbswithrosaleepodcast.com or through the link in the video description. Also in the video description, you'll find other helpful resources. For example, to get my best herbal tips, as well as fun bonuses, be sure to sign up for my weekly herbal newsletter. Okay, grab your cup of tea and let's dive in. Thanks for joining me in my garden for an episode all about sage. I've been meaning to do this video all fall, and now suddenly we have snow. But that's okay, because the sage plant at my feet still looks great in this late season, even under the snow. The sage herb originally comes from the Mediterranean, where it's been loved for thousands of years. The botanical name for this plant is Salvia officinalis. It's commonly called culinary sage. There are many sages out there, including sagebrush, which is Artemisia tridentata, which grows abundantly where I live. There's also white sage, Salvia apiana, a sacred native plant from California that has sadly been over-harvested and over-popularized. There's also lots of medicinal sages that are commonly used in traditional Chinese medicine, like Danshen or Salvia mellifera. Rosemary has been recently reclassified as a sage, and its new botanical name is Salvia rosmarinus. Which is all to say it's important to know what sage herb you're working with, as the common names can be confusing. Do you have experience working with the sage herb? I'd love to hear about it in the comments, either on YouTube or on the official podcast page, herbswithrosaleepodcast.com. Your comments mean a lot to me, and I love cultivating a kind-hearted and loving community of plant-loving folks. Plus, it's always interesting and insightful to hear the experiences of plant lovers out there, and your suggestion may also help others. Okay, let's dive in. One of the most obvious benefits of sage herb is its wonderful taste and smell. This lovely scent and taste is due to the plant's essential oils, which give it a slightly warming quality. The humid energetics of sage are quite interesting. On the one hand, sage is an astringent herb and can be used to tighten and tone tissues. This action is important when tissues have become lax, or they've lost their tone or become swollen. It has an especial affinity for the mouth and the throat and can be used to relieve pain, as well as heal mouth ulcers, canker sores, bleeding gums, spongy gums, and cold sores. Sage is a common ingredient in many tooth powder and mouthwash recipes, or as you'll see in just a bit, a wonderful herb as a sore throat relief recipe. When used in large amounts, sage can be used to dry up breast milk. But it would be overly simplified to say that sage herb is drying. By tightening and toning tissues and helping the body to retain moisture, sage is, in that sense, moistening. There's also an interesting oily quality to sage. In his book, The Earthwise Herbal for the Old World, Matthew Wood lists his specific indications for sage as older persons with a dryness of the skin, hair, mucosa, and tendons, and the drying up of secretions. If you're new to the concepts of herbal energetics and understanding if a plant or a condition is hot or cold or damp or dry, then I highly recommend my first book, Alchemy of Herbs. This best-selling book shows you exactly how to choose herbs that are best for you based on herbal energetics. It also includes an entire chapter on the sage herb. The taste of sage is both bitter and pungent and wonderfully aromatic. When we see these attributes blended together in a single herb, we know it can be used to promote digestion. And sage is a wonderful carminative. It eases painful gas and bloating. It moves stagnant digestion, which is when you eat food and then it feels like you have this immobile rock just resting in your belly. And it even relieves painful intestinal cramping as well. Sage is especially helpful for people who can't digest fats well. It can be taken as a tea before or after a meal, or simply used as an herb or spice within the meal. These digestion-promoting gifts are perfect after a large meal like Thanksgiving, but are obviously wonderful any time of the year. Sage has grabbed headlines in recent years for its ability to support people with Alzheimer's disease or other memory loss. It appears to work in a very unique way. One explanation is that sage inhibits the breakdown of acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is a chemical in the brain, a neurotransmitter that supports both memory and cognition. In patients with Alzheimer's disease, acetylcholine breaks down too quickly, and less of it's produced over time. Both of these actions result in a gradual loss of memory. Sage works as an anticholinesterase, inhibiting the breakdown of this important chemical. There's also significant evidence that sage can strongly modulate inflammation, which is thought to be one of the underlying causes with cognitive decline. Sage has also been shown to help with mild to moderate stages of Alzheimer's disease. In one study, those taking a sage extract for 4 months showed a significant improvement in cognitive functions and less agitation as compared with the placebo group. There's no reason to wait for a diagnosis to use sage. Researchers have shown that an extract of sage improves memory and attention in healthy older volunteers. In fact, sage isn't just for the elderly, it's also been shown to improve both memory and mood in younger populations. One pilot study looked at how a combination of sage, lemon balm, and rosemary affect cognition. They found that there was significant cognitive benefits for people under the age of 63. Sage, lemon balm, and rosemary sounds like a lovely tea to enjoy in the evening to me. Herbalists, of course, aren't surprised that sage can benefit the brain. Herbalist John Gerard, who was an English herbalist who lived in the late 16th and early 17th centuries, wrote in his book, The Herbal, "Sage is singularly good for the head and the brain. It quickeneth the senses and memory." Herbalists have long used sage to soothe a sore throat. The astringent properties can bring relief to the swollen tissues, and the antimicrobial properties can address infection. I like to gargle with sage infusion or drink sage tea with some lemon and honey for this purpose. Modern-day researchers are catching up to this time-honored use of sage. In one human sore throat trial, researchers compared the effects of a sage and echinacea extract with the effects of a spray made up of the antiseptic of chlorhexidine and the anesthetic lidocaine. They concluded that the sage and echinacea extract showed slightly better results than the chlorhexidine and lidocaine for reducing sore throat symptoms after 3 to 5 days. Another study showed that a fluid extract of sage worked better than a placebo in reducing pain due to viral pharyngitis, a viral throat infection. I'll be sharing my sage tea and sore throat recipe with you in just a bit. Sage isn't just for sore throats. It's also effective for a variety of discomforts that can accompany a cold or the flu. Taken as a warm tea, it acts as a mild, stimulating diaphoretic, making it a good choice for fevers when the person feels cold and is shivering. As an herbal steam, it can help decongest the sinuses and loosen congestion in the lungs. With its antimicrobial and astringent properties, sage can be used as a tooth powder or a mouth rinse to promote oral health. There's been several interesting studies regarding sage and oral health. An in vitro test confirmed that sage was effective against the bacteria that cause periodontal disease. Another in vitro test showed that sage extract is effective against other oral pathogens like staph and candida. Sage mouth rinses have also been shown to help patients with cancer who have oral discomfort. The red sage of China, Salvia militariza, is well known for its affinity for the blood, but our Western culinary sage can also be used for a variety of stagnant blood conditions, such as blood clots and varicose veins. In the Earthwise Herbal book, herbalist Matthew Wood describes using sage on multiple occasions for dissolving blood clots. The term for this action in traditional herbalism is blood mover. As a blood mover, sage can be used for people with poor circulation resulting in cold hands and feet, improving blood flow to all parts of the body, including the brain, which could provide us with another explanation of how sage improves cognitive function and can help prevent memory loss. This blood moving property is also a way to frame sage's ability to relieve common PMS symptoms. A triple-blinded randomized clinical trial with 90 college students showed that those taking 500 milligrams of Salvia officinalis capsules once a day for 2 consecutive months showed significant improvements in both physical and psychological symptoms over those taking a placebo. Sage is commonly turned to for easing menopausal complaints such as night sweats and hot flashes. A human clinical trial in 2011 showed that women who took a tablet of sage leaves saw a significant reduction in the intensity and frequency of their hot flashes. A more recent human clinical trial in 2021 showed that women taking a sage extract daily for 4 weeks had significant improvements in overall menopausal symptoms, including hot flashes. In human clinical trials, sage has been shown to have positive effects on blood sugar levels, cholesterol, including triglycerides, and other antioxidant defenses. All of these beneficial effects can be especially useful for those with type 2 diabetes. Although type 2 diabetes is a complex disease that can improve with multiple interventions in diet and lifestyle, herbs have their place in helping to address this metabolic disease. A 2022 systemic review and meta-analysis of the sage herb found that it has a positive effect on blood glycemic status and blood lipid profile in people with type 2 diabetes. One set of researchers were curious as to whether sage is safe to take with statins, a commonly prescribed drug used to control cholesterol levels. They found that sage had numerous benefits and concluded that sage as add-on to statin therapy was apparently safe and further improved lipid or cholesterol profile in type 2 diabetes patients. A clinical trial has also shown benefits of the sage herb for people with PCOS and insulin resistance. They concluded that Salvia officinalis extract at a dose of 330 milligrams a day could decrease systolic blood pressure, and it could enhance insulin resistance markers in PCOS patients. While I haven't seen sage commonly used for pain and injuries by modern herbalists, historically it was used for a variety of painful ailments. Culpeper recommends it for headaches, rheumatic pains, and joint pains. In her book, The Modern Herbal, Maud Grieve lists this sage recipe as a cure for sprains. She writes, "Bruise a handful of sage leaves and boil them in a gill of vinegar for 5 minutes. Apply this in a folded napkin as hot as it can be borne to the part affected." If you try sage for sprains, let me know how it goes. There are many sage varieties from around the world that are revered as medicine. In China, the roots of the red sage, danshen, have been used for thousands of years as a blood mover, blood tonic, kidney remedy, and as part of a formula for treating type 2 diabetes. The white sage of California, Salvia oppiana, is a sacred plant used in ceremonies. Unfortunately, white sage has become overpopularized and overharvested, and it's now endangered. If you have a strong need to buy white sage, please only buy white sage that has been ethically grown and verified and not wildcrafted. Also, consider working with garden sage instead. Our common culinary sage, Salvia officinalis, is native to the Mediterranean and Southern Europe, and is now cultivated all over the world. It grows anywhere from 1 to 3 feet in height. It's a member of the mint family and has square stems and opposite leaves. The leaves are lanceolate, which is long and oval, and are grayish-green in color. There's also hybrids or cultivars of culinary sage with various color variations for the leaves. Sage has purple to blue flowers on terminal spikes that bloom abundantly and beautifully in the springtime. Typically, sage is gathered just before flowering and then dried. However, I'll gather it from the garden anytime I want to use fresh sage in a recipe. I'll even brush the snow off of it before I use it. Sage is generally considered safe for everyone. However, in large amounts of sage are contraindicated in pregnancy, and it can also dry up the flow of milk during lactation, so avoid large amounts unless you want to wean. Sage can be used as a culinary spice and not just for Thanksgiving stuffing, or it can simply be enjoyed as a tea. Regularly enjoying sage tea is a wonderful way to enjoy its many health benefits, whether it's helping to modulate inflammation, support cognitive health, promote circulation, and on and on. Sage is also a powerful plant to bring sore throat relief. The following recipe comes from my first book, Alchemy of Herbs. Sage tea is a simple and delicious way to enjoy the many benefits of sage herb. You can enjoy this tea before or after a meal to support digestion, or sip on it warm to soothe your sore throat. I also like it iced in the summer as a refreshing drink. Here's how to make sage lemon tea. This makes about 1 3/4 cups, or 1 serving. For this recipe, you'll need 1 tablespoon finely crumbled dried sage leaves, a thin slice of lemon, and then honey to taste, which is optional. You can use whatever sweetener or no sweetener. To make this, bring 1 1/4 cups of water to a boil. Place the lemon and sage leaves in a tea mug or a large infuser. You want to avoid cramming the herbs into a small tea infuser. It's better for them to have room to expand and move around in the teacup. Then you want to pour the just boiled water over the sage and lemon and then steep covered for 5 minutes. Strain and then add honey or another sweetener to taste. The answers to so many of our modern day health problems, whether it's chronic inflammation, cognitive decline, or even poor digestion, can be answered with a cup of sage tea. Cheers. If you'd like a free printable recipe card of this sage tea recipe, then visit the link in the video description. You can also find more sage information and tips in my book, Alchemy of Herbs. Also, in the video description, I've included other helpful links like where you can buy sage, as well as both of my books. If you enjoyed this video on sage benefits and you value trusted herbal information, then I hope you'll stick around. The best way to get started is to hit the subscribe button, and if you're really into herbs, then sign up for my weekly newsletter so you can be the first to get my best herbal insights and tips. Here's your sage fun fact. Sage is included in one of the most popular poems in the history of medicine. The Regimen Sanitatis Salernitianum, which I may have pronounced wrong, was written sometime during the 12th or 13th centuries, and there have been over 100 manuscript versions and approximately 300 printed editions of this poem. This is a long poem, includes a lot of health advice. It says this about sage. Why should a man die in whose garden grows sage? Against the power of death, there is not medicine in our gardens, but sage calms the nerves, takes away hand tremors, and helps cure fever. This poem also gives this piece of advice. Should you need physicians, these 3 doctors will suffice: a joyful mind, rest, and a moderate diet. I would add a diet filled with herbs, but hey, I'm biased. Cheers.